Story 1. Nonfiction. Dear Zachary. Fiction. We need to talk about Kevin. Disturbed without even watching 120 Days of Sodom. Edit. I want to add in on the count of 3 because that movie really stayed with me for a while. Story 2. Grave of the Fireflies is a case study in how to show as little blood as possible and yet make the core tragedy of your story strike with great impact. Story 3. Threads is about the aftermath of a nuclear war. It is mostly disturbing because of how possible the whole scenario seems. Story 4. I went through a phase. I searched online for the most disturbing movies and made my way through the list. Call it morbid curiosity. To be honest, I can't remember which one was the most disturbing. Here are a few that come to mind. A Serbian film, Irreversible, Martyrs, Nymphomaniac, The Human Centipede, I Spit on Your Grave. Story 5. Jesus Camp, because it was real. A documentary on the indoctrination of children into religion. It is pretty disturbing. Story 6. I attempted the coffee table. I had to turn it off shortly after because she kept laughing at him while chopping onions. The baby's head was still under the armchair. I just couldn't, and I'm pretty desensitized. Story 7. Trainspotting. My brother has battled heroin addiction nearly his entire adult life, and it is too hard for me to watch. Story 8. 7 is probably the most mainstream disturbing film. Also, the Twilight Zone movie is notable due to the behind-the-scenes deaths. Story 9. Not disturbing in the way many movies in this thread are, but The Pianist really affected me. Most movies about the Holocaust focus on the concentration camps, which are so evil and difficult for me to comprehend that it's hard to relate. The Pianist was the first time I thought, oh, this is how it happens. After wondering my whole life how such atrocities could occur, discovering in the newspaper that they would have to move apartments, life continuing around them, the wall being erected. It really shook me. It makes America's current situation with immigration and customs enforcement all the more frightening. Story 10. Happiness 1998, The Doom Generation, and Naked Lunch. I was not prepared for any of these when I watched them. Story 11. I found The Cell to be very disturbing. I did not like some of the imagery at all. There are people with schizophrenia like that walking among us right now, and it is terrifying. Story 12. Last Cannibal World, 1977. Many of the old Italian cannibal movies contain graphic animal violence before there were regulations protecting animals from cruelty. This film is especially difficult to watch. Story 13. Capturing the Friedmans is one of the few documentaries that made me sit in silence at the end. It is bleak and depressing. Story 14. Requiem for a Dream. Could not get past that scene the first time I watched it, and I cannot bring myself to watch it again. Story 15. There's one film I saw when I was very young that came on television that I would love to find and watch, just to say I finally faced the thing that scared me for years. I have absolutely no idea of the title, but to this day, I still remember its scenes vividly. The opening titles were sepia-colored, with a tarantula that walked through them. The opening scene showed a father in a single-seater vehicle, while the mother was in the kitchen. Some monster-like creature came through the back door, attacked the father, and killed him. Then it went to the wife and killed her. Finally, it walked up the stairs to where a child was hiding in his dark bedroom. The camera followed the creature up the stairs, showing the view through the crack of the door opening. That was the last scene I saw before turning it off. To this day, I do not know the name of the film, but it terrified me for years and caused me sleeping troubles for a long time. I would really love to know what it was. Story 16. Mid-2000s French trifecta of Martyrs, Inside, and High Tension. Disturbing but also some of the best horror movies ever made. The Girl Next Door was also extremely disturbing but not in a good way. It was a good movie by technical standards and acting. I just do not know why someone would want to make it in the first place or how they found other people to make it with them. Story 17. Did not even watch it, just reading the plot description of a Serbian film upset me. Edit. Ebola Syndrome is difficult to watch as well. Goddamn. Story 18. Others have mentioned it, but probably a Serbian film. Although Rob Zombie's 3 from Hell I watched while high, and that was pretty rough. Also, honorable mentions for Alpha Dog, Eden Lake, Sinister, and A Clockwork Orange. Story 19, Carrie. Saw it when I was way too young initially. It made perfect sense the older I got for obvious reasons. I thought it was going to be a slasher like Halloween or Friday the 13th. I couldn't take them seriously after that. Sissy Spacek deserved an Oscar for putting herself out like that to tell the truth. Story 20. Documentaries appeal to me as a lover of the natural world, especially those focusing on the deterioration of our ecosystems. They are impactful because they are real. Closing your eyes will not make the issues disappear. I recently watched a film about water scarcity, a common problem, and I am honestly shocked that we can still sustain so much life on Earth. For me, these documentaries are far more disturbing than anything Hollywood or the entertainment industry has created for shock value or simulated horror. Story 21. We Think the World of You, a British black comedy from the 1980s or 1990s, is about a dog and two men who both believe the dog belongs to them. The story follows their escalating social and physical battle to remove the other from the dog's life. Story 22. Osmosis Jones. Beloved children's classic to some, foundational trigger for a decade-long battle with health anxiety, emetophobia, and contamination obsessive-compulsive disorder to me. Story 23. Old Boy. The movie was confusing at the beginning, but then it all started to make sense. The most disturbing twist at the end made me say, "What the heck?" out loud. It is a really great movie, but it was definitely messed up. Story 24. I saw parts of the film The Angel's Melancholia, and I am set for life. I do not like that movie. I would say The Antichrist is up there. Story 25. La de Meganismism, pero no porque de miedo, sino porque era puro torture por mi rape fetiz, un asco de película. Story 26. Watched and can now never unwatch Bone Tomahawk the other night. Not the most disturbing, but the Deputy Rudy scene is on the list of scenes for certain. Also, Green Room. Story 27. If I were a child when I watched Watership Down, I would probably say that one. Nevertheless, as an adult, I have found its lessons relatable even though it is an incredibly sad movie that could give a young boy or girl nightmares. On the other hand, Eraserhead is the most disturbing film that I have watched from beginning to end. David Lynch made that kind of film. Story 28. Cannibal Holocaust. One of my edgy film classmates in high school, around age 13, thought it was an amazing film and forced me to watch it at a sleepover. It definitely made me think he was edgy. Story 29. Hereditary is not exactly the most disturbing as a whole, but the head scene is, well, let's say I still see those images sometimes when I close my eyes. Story 30. The Act of Killing, 2012. It felt a bit like what camp guards might say about being in the Holocaust during World War II if Germany had won the war. Story 31. Visitor Q. A Japanese movie, possibly a snuff film, and the most disturbing movie I have ever seen. Like grade A, I do not even want to recount its main themes as they are more than taboo and vile. I had the choice of staying around my friends and watching this film or going home. I wish I had gone home because there is no unseeing that. It has been like 20 years, and it is still the absolute answer to that question. Story 32. Either it's The Hunt, the Danish one with Mads Mikkelsen, or a bizarre documentary called The Man Whose Mind Exploded. Story 33. People talk about horror movies or movies with gore. If you make it through happiness once, I doubt you will do it a second time. Story 34. Inside, a French movie actually called À l'Intérieur, is about a girl who is stalked by another girl, all set in one house. I cannot give away too much. Just know there are twists, turns, lots of gore, and an ending that you will never forget. Story 35. This probably does not hold a candle to the other films mentioned here, but The Mission. Watching a group of Christian missionaries genuinely love the people they preach to and defend them from atrocities, only to be brutally murdered by permission of higher religious authorities and the government, was sickening. Genuine love and compassion being snuffed out in the name of land hurt me in a way no other movie ever has. Story 36. Hard Candy. I had no idea what it was about going into it, and it will forever remain in the only watch once category. Story 37. I couldn't finish it, but a friend of mine once put on I Saw the Devil after we had smoked. Luckily, it is mostly out of my head now. I also saw only a little bit of Funny Games, but I do not remember which version, and I could not finish that either. Story 38. A video shows a dark room where on a bed, or possibly a table, there is a large woman with an arm severed and several other deep cuts on her torso and shoulders. Her face is equally mutilated. She is still breathing. Story 39. I Can Handle Martyrs, a Serbian film in Cannibal Holocaust, but I still think about Be My Cat. A film for and daily. The main character is complex, and I did not know whether to feel sorry for him or disgust. Story 40. Given everything we now know, I would have to say that clip of Donald Trump coming down the escalator to announce his candidacy. Story 41. Since no one else has said it, one of the worst violent films I have ever watched was Passion of the Christ. Story 42. Snowtown Murders is about Australia's most notorious serial killer and deals with heavy themes of sexual abuse. It is quite uncomfortable to watch at times because it does not hold back. It is probably more depressing than anything else. Story 43. Life is Hot in Cracktown. These lists usually have similar movies, but I thought this movie was quite disturbing. It features some well-known actors. Kerry Washington plays a transgender prostitute. Story 44. Not a film, but a Punjabi classic love story, Mirza Sahibin. Mirza, the man, and Sahibin, the woman, run off on horseback because their families have tribal enmity and do not like each other. While on the run by a river, Sahibin says she is hungry. Mirza tells her he will try to find some food but finds nothing. Not wanting to keep her hungry, he slices off a piece of his own thigh, cooks it, and feeds her without telling her. This act of involuntary cannibalism is considered true love and sacrifice. Story 45. Either 120 Days of Sodom or Serbian film. It is a toss-up. They are disturbing until you realize they are like an crumb messed up comic book. A real bummer was the end of American Beauty. In the original script, he has sex with the girl. The kid and his daughter are framed by the gay marine and go to jail for life. Story 46. Life of Crime. I have probably seen more gore-filled movies, but this being real life really broke my heart. This documentary follows the lives of 3 individuals in Newark, New Jersey over 36 years, showcasing their struggles with drug addiction and street crime and their attempts to break free from the cycle. Story 47. Rob Zombie's Lords of Salem. It wasn't particularly scary and was weird and twisted, but not the worst I have ever seen. The music and the movie as a whole unsettled me so badly, and I still do not know why. Story 48. Serbian film. I actually never watched the entire film but did watch a few clips and an overview. Near the end, he and his brother are forced to harm his wife and young son while they did not know who they were harming. It should not have been made and is one of the best descriptions of torture pornography. Story 49. Jacob's Ladder as a teenager. Come and see as an adult. Side note. I studied the film director for a class once, and he said that he couldn't even come close to portraying what he had seen during wartime as a child. This movie shows a dizzying amount of disturbing war scenes. For sheer nihilism and feeling extremely uncomfortable while watching it and afterward, which really constitutes disturbing for me. The Hills Have Eyes, 2006 remake. Story 50. In the realm of the senses, she cuts off her lover's private part and keeps it in her pocket for a couple of days until she is arrested. Story 51. Disturbing in a stressed-out way. Mother. I leaned forward with my forearms on my legs for almost the entire movie. Story 52. Old Boy Martyrs, but to be honest, I am just too much of a coward to actually sit down and watch B-movie. Story 53. The documentary called The Look of Silence is quite intense. A man whose brother was murdered during an anti-communist massacre interviews the men who killed him years later. Dear Zachary, a story to a son about his father is very emotional. I am sure I am forgetting a few, fortunately. Story 54. Hole in My Heart by Lucas Moodysson. Or maybe 29 Palms, directed by Bruno Dumont. Both are brilliant films but aggressively disturbing. Story 55. Faces of Death. I am not sure exactly which one, but my parents had it on VHS back in the 1990s and early 2000s. I was young enough to believe it was a legitimate documentary showing actual people dying. Only after looking it up again as an adult did I learn most of it was actors and practical effects. The disturbing part now is knowing that not all of it is staged, and some of the footage is of actual dead bodies. I am not rewatching it now to try to figure out which is which. Story 56. Dead Man's Shoes, 2004. Harrowing. I would never watch it again even though Patty Considine was amazing in it. Story 57. I do not remember, but it was about French units during World War I. They showed the physical and mental states of soldiers. There was one soldier who purposely shot himself to get out of the war. He had severe post-traumatic stress disorder. Story 58. The Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum, and finding out that it was based on a true story disturbed me. I did not think it was possible to hate someone you never met who is also dead. Story 59. I do not know the name, but there are a few friends who get kidnapped in the woods. One gets stabbed, and another is sexually assaulted. The sexual assault scene was really disturbing. I just cannot remember the name or what happens in the rest of the film. Story 60. I cannot remember its name, but the movie about the McDonald's worker and the prank that was played on them shows how the mere appearance of authority can cause others to feel justified in doing horrible, degrading things to people. It is a real story, I believe, with extremely upsetting results. That and Tell Them You Love Me. I suggest watching both with caution. Both are true stories and very upsetting. Story 61. It was called Mother's Day in English. I saw it dubbed in Spanish in Mexico. I have never been able to find it, even though the unknown actors all had United States accents. It started with a gang harassing a woman and her adult children. They managed to trap the gang members in their house. Then the revenge slashing started. It was bloody and horrifying. Story 62. The Hills Have Eyes. Watched that film when I was way too young, and I have not been able to watch it again since. Story 63. Maybe not the most disturbing, but a good watch while still being heavily disturbing on a subtle level is Man Bites Dog. Story 64. I don't know what our teacher was doing, but the lesson was about the slave trade and what they did to prisoners during the journey if supplies were running low. They tied a massive rock to the prisoners and threw them overboard. I was a desensitized kid. I knew what abuse was like. I watched a lot of horror and violent movies my peers couldn't handle. But this, because it was something that actually happened, really frightened me. I was 12 or 13 years old. Then our teacher asked us to write a story about it. Story 65. Bambi. Come on, which person thought it was a good idea to show the death of a mother in the first scenes to 5-year-olds? Story 66. I have scrolled for a while and have not seen Dogtooth, a Greek film, or Wetlands, a German film. Both of those affected me in different ways. Story 67. Pet Sematary, the book and both movies are absolutely terrifying because they feel so real. Losing a child and the parents' desperate grief to do anything to have him back. Story 68. Tokyo Gore Police. The government is a police state. Criminal punishment is lethal capital punishment marketed to civilians as a game. People's cardiovascular systems are operated by sprinkler systems. Story 69. Love this list. Got some new movies to watch. I'd like to add Bone Tomahawk. I also saw The Hills Have Eyes, which left a few scars. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.